morning. I'm Dave Crouch. This is Policy Talks, and it is produced by the Williamson Chamber, better known as Williamson Inc. Most every month of the year, not quite every month, but we've got a bright-eyed crowd here at the Columbia State Community College this morning, and we're happy to have them. Everybody's bundled up very warmly today for some reason. The weather sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. So, but hope everybody survives that well. We also are joined by the TV audience by way of WCTV, which now I think is the mostly available by YouTube. Comcast Channel 3. We got Creed Henderson and his crew back there that make us look good on Channel 3. We've got Tom Lawrence with WAKM. They will be simultaneously broadcasting. And we just are happy to have all of our audiences here. Columbia State provides a beautiful venue for this, and we appreciate Dr. Hall and his team, mostly Mary Beth, making this happen around here. And I guess Bob's pretty involved in that as well. This morning, we're joined by our state senator in the northern part of Williamson County, Jack Johnson. He is also our Senate Majority Leader, represents District 23. Jack, we're happy to have you with us this morning. 27. I even double checked that. That is not what the legislative website says. So, District 27, thank you. And again, we haven't been able to find out whether Joel Hensley is going to be able to join us. I think he may have had a conflict this morning. The senator from the southern part of the county and Marshall, Murray County. Our state representatives, in order of district number, Gino Bolzo from District 61, which is the northern part of Williamson County, Brentwood and so forth. We've got Lee, 63, which is Jake McCalman, the eastern part of the county and top to bottom almost. And then Lee Reeves in District 65, which is the western end of the county. So we're glad to have you. Todd Warner is District 92, covers the Spring Hill area, the southern part of Williamson County, and Marshall County. And you don't have any of Murray. So we're appreciate these guys taking time to be with us this morning, and hope we have a lively discussion. Jack, you made the news here this week. You've got $1 million in your campaign account. That's a record, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Okay, Dave. We'll start with that. If that's where you want to go. Yeah, thank you. It's great to be back with everyone. Always enjoy these conversations every month during session. Very grateful to the Chamber and WAKM and all the folks who helped make it happen. It's a great opportunity for us to get to talk about some of these issues and more than just a very quick soundbite and refute a lot of the garbage that gets put out there on social media about some of the issues that we're facing. But yeah, we have convened. We kicked off a week ago Tuesday, pursuant to the Constitution. It's usually a pretty slow start as people are getting their bills filed and committees are getting underway. And we have the governor's State of the State address scheduled for February 2nd. So I believe that's a week from Monday. And we kind of have the start of session, which is the second Tuesday in January, what the Constitution calls for. But really the official kickoff of session is the governor's State of the State. That's when he delivers his initial budget proposal. We start having budget hearings, and obviously committees get underway and that type of thing. So I'll end where you started. Very grateful for the support I've received from Williamson County for my reelection. Thank you.
I would predict you're going to be our state senator for another 4 years, at least, if not somewhere up the ladder from there. The governor's budget, do you know much about what the priorities are going to be this year?
Yeah, so we've covered this many times, so I won't go into tremendous depth. But our budget is based on forecasted revenues. So we have a funding board that meets throughout the year, studying the economy. We get over 2/3 of our revenue from sales tax in the state of Tennessee, and I'm a big fan of that, consumption taxes. But one of the things about that is it's less predictable than other forms of taxation. I'm very happy we don't have a state income tax, we don't have a state property tax. But because sales taxes, consumption taxes are subject to political or rather economic ebbs and flows, we have to be very mindful of that. So the funding board makes a prediction. We base our budget on that. We're very conservative with that. If we're doing our job, we're going to come in under, meaning we're going to spend less, and what we project in terms of revenue growth will be less than what we actually collect, which means we come back with a surplus, recurring, potentially non-recurring. And so throughout the fiscal year, we're watching that very closely, much like you would a business. You have a budget for your business, you predict sales, revenues, and expenditures, and so forth, and you track that throughout the year. So far, we're tracking very close to the estimates. December was a bit of a surprise. Revenues came in a little bit better than anticipated, which is a good sign. But that will inform us and dictate how we move forward. The governor has to prepare a budget well in advance of knowing what those numbers are. So that initial proposal is usually quite conservative, funding the basic nuts and bolts of government, various agencies and departments. When it comes to things that are more of a wish list than things you absolutely have to do, that comes later in session with the administrative amendment, which comes in March. But Tennessee's economy is strong. We continue to thrive, and we're in a really good place. But it's a little early to know exactly how much extra revenue we're going to have for things like infrastructure, long-term capital projects, and so forth.
So putting non-recurring expenditures from this year's budget, and is there any projection to the surplus that's going to be left over after?
Not yet. I would hesitate to throw out a number at this point. This past year, we did have a fairly significant amount of non-recurring surplus. The recurring side of the ledger was a little tighter. As a result, as we've talked about here, we were able to put a $1 billion cash injection into our road fund, which is important, as well as take care of some other long-term capital projects. And that's a good way to run government. We'd like to take that non-recurring revenue that we have on a one-time basis and pay for things that could cost us money into the future, which saves us money on the recurring side. And I'm sure that that's what the governor's going to propose again this year.
One of our colleagues in the House, Mr. Lambert, has proposed no sales tax on groceries. Is that achievable?
I'm adamantly opposed to that. And Williams, my friend, we've had lots of conversations about that. Our sales tax on groceries is already roughly 30% less than it is on everything else that we pay. As I was just explaining, we get our taxes from consumption taxes. And in order to make that successful, your tax needs to be broad and keep it low. We're the second or third lowest tax state in America on individual tax liability. We're the least indebted state in America. And so I like where our taxes are right now, and I will oppose any effort to reduce the sales tax on food. I'm not against tax cuts. I'm not against looking for ways to help Tennessee consumers at all income levels, but we've got to preserve that recurring tax base that we have. It's a consumption tax. If we start chopping away at it and taking away certain things, then we have to raise it on others. And best way to have a tax system is for it to be very broad and keep it as low as possible. And that's what we have right now.
Circle back and talk more about roads and road construction and things like that after everybody has a opening statement here about your bills. Mr. Bolzo.
Morning, Dave.
District 61, you've got several bills in the pipeline already, I think. One, I think, about bringing the Bible back into our education system in a couple of different ways, don't you? And just tell us a little bit about what your priorities are this year and what you've proposed.
Sure. Let me just start with that one. Dave, you're referring to HB 1491, which is a bill to put voluntary vocal prayer back into our public schools and to have the Bible as part of curriculum K through 12 to be taught as literature and as history. And that's something that will be very familiar to many folks who are in the elderly category, because our public schools actually had prayer and Bible study from the very founding of the country all the way until 1962, when the U.S. Supreme Court decided Engel versus Vitale and effectively ruled that prayer in schools violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. But our more recent jurisprudence from our Supreme Court has more properly interpreted the First Amendment. So this is a time to get prayer back in schools. We also have some other bills that are going to be coming before committees that I've got. Dave, I serve as chairman of our naming and designating committee. You know, we're going to have a bill that I filed to designate November 2 as James K. Polk Day on our Tennessee calendar. We'll make that a special day of observance because, interestingly, although Andrew Jackson has a special day of observance in Tennessee, James K. Polk does not. And his presidency was enormously important to the country and consequential because, you know, it was when he was president that we added Texas, Oregon, New Mexico, California. We actually took our country from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. And in his honor, my hope is that we'll be able to pass a bill designating November 2 as a special day to recognize him. It's especially interesting now that we're in this climate where President Trump is trying to add Greenland to the United States.
The governor did a day for Dolly Parton here last week or week before. Did that go through the House and Senate, or is that a governor's prerogative?
It's more of a governor's prerogative. What we're doing is changing the code. We actually have a code section that lists the days of observance, and so this bill would be adding to that. And also we'll add September 10 as Charlie Kirk Day to honor his memory and the fact that he gave his life in service for his country. Also, you know, coming before the Judiciary Committee, which I'm on, will be a couple of other bills that deal with some recent Supreme Court decisions. Once again, just to insulate Tennessee from the effect of some of those decisions. We had the Obergefell versus Hodges decision in 2015, which struck down, among other things, our constitutional provision designating marriage as traditional marriage between one man and one woman. And I've got a bill that makes it clear that the Supreme Court's decision in Obergefell applies to public actors. It does not apply to private citizens. Private citizens are not bound either by the 14th Amendment or by the Supreme Court's interpretation of it. And we got a similar bill dealing with another decision from the U.S. Supreme Court, the Bostock decision in 2020, that interpreted the term sex in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to include sexual orientation and gender identity as bases upon which employers are prohibited from discriminating. That, once again, is a federal statute. It deals with federal law, and my bill makes clear that our state laws remain the same, that the term sex, when we've used that in the General Assembly, we've always used that term to refer to male or female, not orientation, not gender identity. I've also got a bill that is going to allow expectant mothers who are in their second or third trimesters to use disabled handicap parking spaces, just as a way of making Tennessee more welcoming to new life. And those are just a few highlights.
Ladies in the third trimester especially will appreciate that, I know, having been around some of those in recent years. So that might be a very popular bill. So
it's drawn very good reviews. In fact, some mothers have come up and said, you know, we really need a few months afterwards because we have a newborn that we take to the stores. And so we may be looking at maybe expanding that.
That's great. Now, I've got to ask a question here, but there were 10 bills filed on January 15th regarding illegal immigration and all kinds of issues surrounding that. Who's our expert here on those bills?
Everybody go ahead and step forward.
All right. Well, I thought it might be you, Mr. Lee, but let's give Jake his turn in the saddle. I just want to be sure we covered that. And I wasn't quite sure who the best spokesman for those bills. Jake McCalman, District 63. You're our protector of the Transportation Committee and the Transportation Subcommittee this year. Now, that means we ought to get a lot of road projects in Williams County, right?
One would think. I think protector, I think more than willing victim is probably the better descriptor of it, Dave.
So what do you see coming from transportation this year? I know Jack was quick to remind me that y'all put $5.3 billion into the road construction above and beyond the budget over the last couple, 3 years. So, and we appreciate that, sir. But when are we going to see dirt turning in Williamson County or up and down I-65 places that some of us travel on a regular basis?
Well, as you know, Dave, we don't take a debt out on our roads. We pay as we go historically. Last year, we were tasked on the Transportation Committee to find new creative ways of generating new road funding. Something that I'm carrying this year, we're calling it the SHARE Act, which is an acronym for Safe Highways and Roads Enforcement. What this does, it basically enacts a state penalty on all moving violations. $25 for private citizen, $50 for a commercial driver's license, $100 for a DUI. The thought with that is if you're going to break the rules of the road, well, you can pitch in a little bit to help fund them. Just looking at last year's numbers, if we had this in place, that would have covered the cost of what we spent plowing snow last year, which was about $20 million. $20 million doesn't seem like a lot. It's not going to fix I-24 or 65, but it could certainly go towards something like a Nolensville Road or a 31, some of these smaller county and municipal projects that are state funded. So really looking forward to getting that pushed through. We've got a lot of positive feedback on that. But it comes down to funding, and we've got 95 counties. Every one of those counties has got potholes that need to be fixed. It's got new roads that need to be built. And we got to figure out new ways to get that funding. So,
any suggestions?
Well, 65, I'm excited about it because it's in the pipeline to have one of our choice lanes put in. I think that will be immensely helpful with alleviating some of that traffic, mainly because the state's not paying to build it. So it's a new lane that the state will own, a private company builds, and it frees up, and it adds one more lane that we can all drive through to avoid that traffic.
What's the timeline on something like that?
I'm not sure on the timeline. I know 24 is first, just because of, 24 is a gridlock all day, every day.
Yeah.
Fairly certain that 65 is either second or third in the pipe, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that.
Anything else on the top of your list this year?
Human trafficking, always a passion of mine. Want to make sure we're doing what we can in this state to help combat it. We've done a lot of good things in the past with regards to statute of limitations and victims restitution. Something that I'm looking at this year is incorporating a age-appropriate K through 12 curriculum that would help educate students on how to recognize signs of it, but also how not to end up a victim of it. Looking forward to having discussions on that as well.
Representative Reeves, Lee Reeves.
Yes, sir.
District 65. Go ahead and tell us about those immigration bills or those kind of bills.
Okay.
However you want to characterize them.
Well, sure. So last Thursday, leadership in the House and in the Senate had a press conference related to 9 bills, and that may become more, that kind of comprehensively deal with illegal immigration in the state of Tennessee. One of those is an illegal entry bill, and that's something I've been an advocate for the last year or so, and I'm really glad that leadership has kind of stepped up and adopted that, and they're going to run that as well. So I think that's very important. It basically says that if you have a final deportation order in the state of Tennessee, then you may be charged with a state crime, and that's beneficial because it gives us the ability to hold people that are not here legally, criminals specifically, that are stopped and arrested and they're able to be picked up and deported. 287G is another topic. It's something I've talked a lot about. Those are cooperation agreements primarily within our jails at the county level. And it allows warrants to be served in the jail. That's the most common type of 287G agreement. And instead of warrants being served out in our neighborhoods. And so that's a public safety measure that I think is a very good thing. And then there's also the jail enforcement model, which allows folks at the local level to scan federal databases and identify people that are here illegally. There's a host of other things involved in that. I know that Leader Johnson has been involved on the Senate side. But those are the two biggest things that at least I'm focused on, and glad to see that they're running with them.
You're on the Education Committee, K through 12 subcommittee, so pretty much anything that happens to our K through 12 schools, you're going to get a look at. Any priorities there this year?
Well, the biggest is expanding our education freedom scholarships. And I know the governor wants to do that. I know that leadership is interested in doing that. We've got to see what our budget looks like, but and we'll see how much that's expanded. But that's the biggest thing. Representative Bolso sits on that committee with me, and we've done a lot. Oh, you do too.
I used to.
Oh, gotcha. So we've done a lot in the education space. I would like to think we're close to perfect by now, but we're not. And the Education Committee is, I think, second to the Justice Judiciary Committee in the number of bills filed. So we'll see what comes.
And you're also on the Finance, Ways, and Means Committee, so you're keeping a watch over the budget and things like that.
We are, and of course, any bill with a fiscal note is before the committee, and we decide. We hear those, and of course, we hear from all the departments and the agencies and their budget requests as well. And we'll start that, I believe, next week if we're in. I hope we're in, and if not, the week after.
Apologies to the other gentleman for leaning on Mr. Reeves here, but Americans for Prosperity, I think, was helpful when you got elected. And they've got an agenda this year with about 4 items on it. Have you looked at those proposals and got an opinion or a priority list out of those? I've got them here.
Well, I'm glad you do. I don't remember all 4, to be honest with you. But one is a regulatory act that essentially says that the departments and agencies should not be allowed to create rules that actually should be laws and in front of the legislature. And I think that's a very good thing. And we see a lot of that happening at the federal level, but I think it's important for the states to rein that in as well.
Expand school choice, which we'll talk about more in a moment, but that's a budget issue, I understand. So we'll talk about that. Repeal the certificate of need process. Some thought that might already be down the road a ways, but Jack, you want to address that?
Sure, I'm happy to chime in on that. So yeah, certificate of need, basically in Tennessee relative to healthcare to build or expand capacity. You have to go through a board to demonstrate that there's need in the community. We're one of a few states that still have a certificate of need. A lot of states have repealed or curtailed it. Phone's ringing there on my watch. Where it matters, I think, to Williamson County is relative to Williamson Health. We have this incredible hospital that's just a couple of blocks down the street from us, and kudos to the county and the board of that hospital who the hospital was created in the 1950s via a private act from the state legislature. We have a number of private act hospitals across the state, but the Williams County Medical Center is certainly a premier medical facility, not only in the state, but in the nation. Because of our payer mix in Williamson County, we're a very affluent county. We have a much higher percentage of people who are on commercial health insurance. And so the profitability of that particular hospital, even though it's a nonprofit, but it is a very financially viable hospital. And so a lot of others would like to come in and build a hospital right next door. And but they have to go through that certificate of need process to demonstrate that there is a need for that. I think there's a general sentiment in the General Assembly that certificate of need may be about a bit outdated. And so there are a lot of conversations about that, and there have been attempts to repeal certificate of need. We've made modifications relative to MRIs and other types of outpatient surgery facilities that used to be subject to certificate of need, and we've modified the code to allow those to avoid that process. But full-blown acute care hospitals like Williamson Medical Center are still subject to that. It's very important to our county because the county has guaranteed bonds that have been issued for that hospital. It's very well run. Our county commission has done an outstanding job. In my view, and I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, it is not a matter for the General Assembly to decide what is done with that hospital. That's a county issue. That should be determined by the board of the hospital and the county commission. I have worked well with our county commission over the years on statutes relative to that hospital and what can be done with it. There is consideration now that that at least they're studying the possibility of selling the hospital. I don't think that's a surprise. The county commission passed a resolution asking us to pass legislation to facilitate that, to amend the private act in order to facilitate that, should the county and the board of Williamson Medical Center decide to do that. I think that's a consideration of this movement relative to certificate of need. If I had to predict today, I do think certificate of need for acute care is going to phase out in Tennessee. It's not going to happen immediately, but there will be some type of a glide slope to do away with that process. So that's something for the county commission, for the board of Williamson Medical Center and Williamson Health to contemplate as that goes along. So very grateful for the great communication and partnership we've had with the county and our hospital folks to make sure we're doing what's best at the state level for the county.
There are other priority this year, and they are a pretty significant interest group in the state, but it's to cap local property taxes and not allow just unlimited property tax increases from the states and cities around the state. Anybody want to comment on that? Then we're going to move on to Mr. Todd Warner from District 92.
Thank you, Dave. It's an honor to be here this morning, and good morning, Williamson County.
We see each other on a somewhat regular basis because you're quite interested in the water supply needs of the Duck River Basin, which includes most of Marshall and Murray County, among others. But tell us what's going on there and what you're
Well, I filed a couple of bills. Well, one of them is an HJR that urges TVA to rebuild the Columbia Dam. As some of you may not know, we had a dam built on the Duck River back in the 80s. It was started in, I think, the late 70s. And Dave, correct me, I know you're on the board too. That was taken out in the 90s. This dam was about 92 or 3% complete. I think all that it liked doing or liked being done was the river being diverted to the original channel and the floodgates maybe put in the dam, and it would have been complete. But some folks, I guess, decided that a mussel at that time was more important than us maybe securing drinking water for down the road. Also, the economic benefit of a dam down in Murray County. Statistics show that back in, I think, 2018 or 19, that the University of Tennessee done a study around Thames Ford Lake, which would be about the same size as the new dam if it can be built in Murray County. The financial gain, or what it would do financially for the area. It was some $275 or $300 million a year that reservoir at Thames Ford brings in for the surrounding communities. So that's another thing we need to look at. I also have a bill that would prohibit TDEC from putting a limit or stopping a utility, public utility, from drawing water out of the Duck River unless that there was a contaminated water, unless something was found to be wrong with the water, or if it affects an endangered species. So right now, Marshall County is in the process of building a new water treatment plant on the Duck River. They had to file for a permit with TDEC to build this new water treatment plant. It's going to treat about 4 million gallons a day. Well, TDEC has issued in their permit, if that river drops below 175 cubic feet per second, that they have to stop pumping. Well, when they stop pumping, folks go without water. And I just don't think we're there yet in Tennessee where we want to turn off somebody's water because, like I think it was Representative Reeves talked about a while ago, a rule that's been in place. We've never passed a bill at the state that said that 175 cubic feet per second is critical. I don't know where TDEC's getting that. I was supposed to have a meeting with them this next week. Senator Boland's carrying that bill over in the Senate, but the city of Tullahoma, I think Manchester, the city of Shelbyville, city of Lewisburg, city of Chapel Hill, Marshall County Board of Public Utilities, Murray County Water, Columbia, and on down, all of those communities get their water out of the Duck River. And we're in an infrastructure crisis. Governor Lee put $100 million in last year's budget for the planning partnership to come up with different ways to help the situation. One thing they've came up with is raising Normandy Dam, I think 8 or 10 feet. Another thing they've talked about is pipeline from the Tennessee River or from the McCumberland River, which is going to be, I think, a great burden. I think early estimates show about $2 billion to run that pipeline that far. The third thing they came up with that the utilities should do is maybe regionalize. Some of them trying to go together and pump water from different stages of the region. A fourth thing that they've come up with is for lakes to be built or reservoirs to be built around the treatment plants where they could pump water out of those reservoirs when that river is at a critical stage. So I'm just trying to put some emphasis back on the dam. Somebody thought it was a good thing at one time, and I think it's a great thing now that we need to reconsider.
Full disclosure, back in the late 70s, I was doing a lot of water skiing and having to drive to Center Hill, and I was looking forward to that lake right here in our backyard to have some smooth water close by. And I've been mad about it ever since they tore it down. But so I've been involved in the effort that they're doing to try to bring that dam back. They have acquired 15,000 acres of land in mostly Murray County. They had originally wanted to acquire about 27,000 acres. There's only about another 4,000 that would actually be required to cover the lake footprint that they had originally planned, which is about the size of Timms Ford Lake, a little bigger than Timms Ford is what was originally planned. So I will move on from that. I could spend a while on that, but again, I've got a conflict there, so just wanted to mention.
I also might mention, Dave, that Congressman Ogles, I think, has secured a funding study in Congress to maybe have a study reinstated on the feasibility study on what it would take to make this thing work.
That is my understanding, and it will be part of a bill, I think, coming up later this year. But
Dave, if it gets built, you gonna take up skiing again?
I have told several people I'm gonna water ski on that lake before I die. So we'll see.
Maybe right before, I don't know.
Maybe something to that, Lee. We'll see. We've talked a lot about roads and so forth, and Jack, you're our fiscal authority here because you work very closely with the governor's office on budgeting and that sort of thing. And the Tennessee Road Builders Association has done a 180-degree change in their attitude toward bonding for roads in Tennessee, which is huge because they've been right with your delegation in opposing any bonding for road projects. But they've changed. What do you think about that? What are the chances of that happening?
Well, I guess might ought to set the stage here a little bit as to kind of where we are with regards to roads and infrastructure, because it's obviously very important here in Middle Tennessee and all across the state. But here in Middle Tennessee, we're having a higher rate of growth than other parts of the state are as well. If you add up every road project that needs to be done in the state today that's been identified, it's approaching $40 billion. Some estimates are even higher, but it's about 38 to $40 billion in today's dollars. The gas tax we all pay to fund roads in Tennessee, not counting the federal gas tax and money we get from federal, but it generates about $1.5 billion a year. Half of that goes to maintenance. And so that only leaves about $750 million a year to go towards new capacity. So $750 a year, a $38 billion hole, you kind of see the situation we're facing. So that's why, as you mentioned, and Jake did a great job talking about some of the things we've done in recent years, we have been making cash injections into that road fund to the tune of about $4.3 billion, $3.3 billion 2.5 years ago. Another billion this last year. And by the way, that was general fund money. We didn't raise taxes. We did not take on any debt. We're using some of that budget surplus to help overcome that deficit. Jake mentioned the choice lanes. That's an incredibly important part of that whole calculus, not only because it generates additional capacity on major thoroughfares like I-24, I-65 at no expense to taxpayers. It generates that additional capacity, but because those facilities are monetized, they potentially can and probably will, not a promise, but probably will be accretive back from a revenue standpoint back to the state. Meaning I-24, every time someone's driving on that and they're choosing to use the choice lane and paid to use that additional capacity, the ROI back to the private entities that have funded that facility is capped. That's part of the negotiation. Anything above that comes back to the state. So we're hopeful for that. The other thing, which I think Jake mentioned, but I want to make sure, we did divert $80 million a year from the tire tax that we all pay into the road fund. We have to find ways to improve that road fund. There is a great deal of resistance to abandoning that policy. If you look at Georgia, I think it's about 45% of the gas tax they're collecting is being used to repay debt from 10, 20 years prior. And so we don't want to get into that deficit situation on our roads. We do issue bonds. This last year, we authorized the issuance of about $1 billion in bonds at the state level. We still maintain our status as the least indebted state per capita in the entire country by a long shot. Your per capita rate of debt in Tennessee is $266. The next closest is Texas and Florida. One's about $760 and one's about $780. So we are by far the least indebted state in America, and we're going to stay that way. Yes, we have an issue with our roads. Hopefully, we'll continue to generate additional non-recurring money that can go in to expedite some of those projects. We did the tire fund. We need to find other recurring revenue sources that can go into the road fund. We got the choice lanes, which hopefully will be accretive. This is just what we've done so far. We're not done. And then the third thing, or the final thing I'll say that I'm very excited about is the boring company, which has made Tennessee probably their number one state now. There's only one other community, that's Las Vegas, that has a boring company facility. And they are doing great work to get traffic off of I-40 from the airport to downtown Nashville. And we're very excited to have them here, no cost to taxpayers, and the potential for that technology long-term to get vehicles off the road is tremendous. So a lot of things working, but it's a very high priority for us at the state.
The boring, the airport traffic jam, I think, is only second to the June Lake I-65 traffic jam, but
Probably right.
I hear it's been pretty bad here lately, although I don't fly very often. So the chamber is very interested in workforce housing. And I don't know that there are any state bills on the agenda right now to deal with that. It's, it's a problem everywhere, but particularly in our high growth areas. Anybody have any bills or suggestions on how that might be addressed?
Sure. I mean, the problem is the Fed is artificially keeping interest rates high, which reduces the ability for the private sector to either lend money, borrow money, develop property, and build houses. And many folks believe that Jerome Powell and the Fed are keeping interest rates artificially high so that for political reasons, so that President Trump actually cannot provide the type of economy that he promised to provide in the election of 2024. And I think interest rates are too high, Dave. And unless and until we get the Fed to move interest rates to where they should be, we're not going to have the type of economic activity we need in the housing sector to provide affordable housing in Tennessee or anywhere else. That's the principal problem.
Couldn't argue with that at all. Interest rates are a huge part of a monthly payment on a mortgage, and if they can get those down, I'll get in the weeds just a minute, but if the Fed lowers short-term rates, sometimes that raises the rates on the 10-year, 30-year bonds, which pretty much dictate what mortgage rates are. So, and I know they're buying back bonds, which somewhat offset that tendency. But anything you would suggest that would offset that?
We're going to get a new chairman of the Fed fairly soon. And so I think we have new leadership at the Fed that they'll put rates where they need to be for the benefit of the American people. And that you're right. I mean, that short-term rates will go lower. Long-term T-bills will go somewhat higher. But in the long run, if we manage the economy for the benefit of the family, we're going to be where we need to be. But right now, families just can't afford to live anymore, particularly in Williamson County. And this is just something that just frustrates us to no end in the General Assembly because it's one of the things that we have so little control over. And immigration is another area where historically we have a big problem, but we have little control because the Immigration and Nationality Act, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, has completely preempted that area. And one of the most exciting things about the bills that Lee previewed for us is that those were developed by House leadership in direct communication with the White House. So we have the federal and the state governments working collaboratively now to try to address some of the immigration problems. And I actually filed a bill yesterday, HB 1925, with that in mind, that we need to have, as one of our core principles on immigration, encouraging legal immigration. Right now, that is too bureaucratic, it's too expensive. But I had some ideas as to how we can, working with the federal government, reduce that. And so I filed a bill called the One America Act to try to get our state and our country back to the point where we have one community, not the community that everyone sees, and a shadow community that just is going along, unfortunately, in an illegal way for decades now. So I think we've got problems that we can't completely solve in the General Assembly, Dave. Housing is one, affordability is one, immigration is one, but we're making some headway.
One area that there is some concern about is the efforts to deal with illegal immigrants might catch some of our international businesses that are located in Williamson County. Their employees that come back and forth from Japan or France or other foreign countries. Are we adequately protected from that? I guess is the question.
Well, I'll tell you that in the House, I know that they are working with businesses and the chamber and other folks to make sure that our laws are specifically tailored. There's a driver's license bill, actually, that requires a test to be in English. However, we understand that people come over from other countries to work in a business, and so there is a 12-month grace period on that, provided they pass the initial test, but they will have to then take that test again within a year. And that's just one example of how legislators are listening to those concerns and trying to address them.
Roger Sanderson was here. I haven't seen him. If he's hiding behind anybody, let me know. But one of his priorities for the last couple of years is our real estate transfer tax. And somebody bring us up to date on what's been done, what I know he would like to have all that returned to the county because it's a significant number for Williamson County. Every time a house is sold, when the deed's recorded, you pay a transfer tax. And obviously that amounts to a lot of money.
Well, I've got that bill. I'm I guess trying to lead the effort on that in the Senate, and it is something that's very important. Back prior to the income tax battle, which some of us remember when that took place in the late 90s and early 2000s, half of that real estate transfer tax that's generated, as you said, with real estate transactions, went to the county in which that real estate transaction occurred. Kind of makes sense. And so it generates, don't hold me to the number, but I think, well, at that time, half of that, if you bought a house or sold a piece of property and you pay that tax, half of it went to the state, half of it went to the county. And during the income tax battle, one of the things that Democrats did in an effort to balance the budget when they couldn't get a state income tax passed is to take that money from the counties and pull it. And we need to give it back to them. That's my view. If you run a county like Williamson County that people want to live in and there's a lot of real estate activity, you should be a beneficiary of that tax. So it's another example of something we're trying to do to right a wrong that was created by the Democrats back when they were in charge of the General Assembly. Simple fact of the matter is, though, I think the total fiscal note on it it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a lot. So in order to do that, we're going to have to reduce the state budget and get that back to the counties. And I think we should. I think the most likely scenario is, and we're having conversations with the House and with the Senate, and the governor's office rather, is to get that mechanism in place. We may not be able to restore all of it in 1 year, but we need to get it started and start getting some of that money back to the counties. Similarly, and my municipal mayor friends would be mad at me if I didn't also bring up state shared sales tax, which is a very similar issue in terms of sales taxes that are generated in a particular municipality. And again, the state back under Democratic control took all that money, and we need to start. So it's really a dual-pronged thing, and we need to address both of those. It's going to take, probably can't get it all done in one budget cycle, but we need to start getting that money back to our local governments.
Want to tie giving those tax monies back to the local entities to having them take a bigger role in road construction.
Well, that's actually a very good point, and it's something that Mayor Anderson, our county mayor, Rogers, has committed, is that maybe that is something that you could do is tie use of that state shared sales tax to go into a local contribution to important road projects. So that is a thought, it's a consideration, and I think that was smart on Mayor Anderson's part to include that.
This hour has flown by. We've got 4 or 5 minutes for questions. If anybody in the audience would like to ask a question or raise an issue, I will bring the mic to you and ask you to identify yourself and speak and stand up first so we can see you.
Hi, my name is Joshua. I'm a resident in Gino's district. My question was going to be about 1474, but I know that's going to be thrown out of committee since it's a flagrant attack on the First Amendment rights for expression. My question for you is, why are you trying to honor a guy who isn't from Tennessee? I mean, we don't even have a day to honor the former vice president from Tennessee, Al Gore. I don't get it. Why honor a guy who was not a public servant or in any way helped Tennesseans? it doesn't make sense.
Well, Joshua, thank you for the question. I think it does make sense. And I think Charlie Kirk did help Tennesseans. And I think what we'll see in time, that his assassination will have a similar effect on the country as we saw with John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King back in the 60s, because Charlie started something that is just growing exponentially that we never had before. He was actually reaching out to a category of young people, particularly young men, who really had no goals in life. They had no direction as to what their lives meant. And he approached them with an open hand on college campuses, engaged them in debate, and not simply about political issues. So much of what Charlie was doing was reaching young men in particular on a spiritual level and giving them hope for the future. And I think the reason that Turning Point USA has been such a success is that Charlie genuinely was a public servant who knew that his life was in danger every time he stepped out under one of those tents, under a sign that said, "Prove me wrong," on college campuses. So I think honoring him in Tennessee is a very appropriate thing to do on September the 10th.
Thank you, Gino. Rick Graham, former mayor of Spring Hill, now with Columbia State. You famous in any other ways that I'm not aware of?
As far as me, no. That's it. I do. Well, really more comments. And one, I appreciate each of you guys and what you do. Maybe at the camera. And yeah. Yeah. I bet it's that right there. Let me scoot over. Anyway, so I appreciate what you guys do and all, and I understand your intent for zero debt for state funding for transportation and infrastructure. And but what's going on is the municipalities are not debt free. I can speak for Spring Hill alone, has borrowed over $80 million for roads. So the state may be debt free, but it's not really pertaining, because when the cities are taking on the burden. My second one is the choice lanes you guys mentioned. And I'm not real happy that 65 is going to be done second or third, which could be years down the road, when I believe there's enough companies out there that can bid and implement dual projects at the same time. I would prefer if 65 was done at the same time as 24. And I believe we could do a dual bid system, and it could be mutual, same company or mutual companies, but I think that could be done.
Comments?
But thank you, Rick. You know, I agree with you. It's taken us entirely too long in this state to build roads. From the time a project is dedication or TDOT sees an area that needs a road project, it takes 12 to 15 years to jump through all the hurdles to get that project finished. And sometimes, you know, Mayor Anderson told me here a while back, we were on the phone, and I was going to the chamber down in Spring Hill, and you may have been there when we talked about this that day. Sometimes a governor may not put roads first priority because he's usually gone out of office by the time it's completed. I'm a firm believer that TDOT and we at the state have got to figure out a way to speed that process up. Of course, when there's federal money that comes in, which, you know, we get a lot of federal money for our roads, that there's a NEPA study that has to be done. That NEPA study takes about 2 years. You've got right-of-way acquisition. You've got the design process to go through, but we at the state have got to figure out, and TDOT has got to figure out a way to speed that up, and we've got to figure out a way to pay for it. Now, I'm going to ask a question this morning. I want to show of hands. And, you know, it's probably maybe not be the most popular question to ask, but I want to show of hands, and I want to see some honesty in this room. How many of you folks would support legalized gambling if all of that money, because I'm talking about like casino like they have in Louisville and Kentucky, like they have in Tunica, if that money went towards roads? Show of hands. I guess now let me ask you this question. What is the difference in us gambling on scratch-off cards and paying for your child's education and taking gambling and paying for roads? Does anybody have an answer what the difference is there? Because we're never going to buy our way out of this road problem. I'm telling you right now, the state's never going to be able to pay enough to buy our way out of it, and without borrowing an ungodly amount of money. And I'm not crazy about the borrowing. I like the position that the state's in. Dave's telling me to hurry up. So
Another question here I want to get in before we run out of time. Andy Marshall.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being here. This has been great. Yeah, the return of the transfer tax and shared sales tax will go a long way towards us fixing some of our own problems in our own communities. So I love that we're working on that and would love to continue that. My question is, who is working on who owns the land below us? We know who owns the land we stand on. We know who owns above us. Who owns the land below us? Are we working on that and securing that for projects like the Boring Company?
Well, I'll defer to some of our legal counsel on the program here today, but I asked that same question, Andy, and it's my understanding, and generally speaking, if you own a piece of property, you own it to the center of the earth. And that's mineral rights and so forth. Now you can sell those, you can lease those, you can do other things with those rights. And the same is true for state thoroughfares like state roads, which is why the Boring Company on that initial project from the airport to downtown is going to be going under Murfreesboro Road, which is a state road. And if they wish to divert from that, then they would have to negotiate either with a private landowner to have access or rights to utilize that subsurface area. I am introducing a couple of bills. We may not need them, but I do have a couple of bills in place just in case we need to clarify some of that relative to because if this becomes a thing, and it's early, right? I mean, we know that they're going to do that initial project, but I think it could be something for the future. My wife and I were in Vegas a few months ago, and we did the Tesla loop that's out there. It was right after the governor had announced this partnership with the Boring Company in Tennessee, and it is amazing. It's amazing. You walk out, you get in a Tesla, and you go down, and you're zipping along 30, 40 miles an hour, and you pop up at the next location. And at full utilization, you can have just hundreds and hundreds of cars in there. So it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful technology. I'm very proud that Tennessee is going to be a leader in that area, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we maximize utilization of that to help our citizens.
We'd love to continue this, but our time is almost over. Want to thank several people that make this happen, and don't know that I'm on anymore, am I? Okay. Most of all, our panelists, our state legislative delegation is a very busy group, and they take time here every month to come and talk to us, listen to us, and we really appreciate the time y'all take to do this. It's very important to us understanding what's going on. Dr. Shane Hall in Columbia State, Mary Beth, all the staff here at Columbia State, we appreciate the hospitality y'all show us here. Creed and WCTV, again, make us look very good on cable channel 3. Tom Lawrence at WAKM AM 950 is important to us. Derby Jones over here with Williamson Herald is a very important partner to get the word out about these, and we appreciate the help there. Financially, the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and Brady is, raise your hand over there, is helping in a financial way as well as AT&T, and we appreciate the financial contribution to this effort. The most important lady in the room, is she still here? Terry Wimke, excuse me, has brought the coffee from McDonald's, And the Lion Leadership Group is the local franchisee for most of our McDonald's in this area, and they make sure we have free McDonald's coffee every time we meet. And our Williamson Inc. team, led by Matt Largen, back there in the back. Jenna was kind of the quarterback this time because Kel McDowell left us. But understand we've got a new government and community affairs person coming on board here shortly. Do you want to make an announcement, Matt? Okay. Just thought I'd reach out there for that. And we do have what we call a Day on the Hill on February the 17th. Want to invite everyone to participate in that. You'll follow the chamber website. We do go down to the Capitol Hill and listen to the state reps and senators and interact with them even more. So would enjoy having all y'all at that. Next policy talks, February 27th. Hope you'll all come back and bring a friend. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your participation.